and welcome. Today marks a major advancement in the fight against card-not-present fraud. So we're here to unveil a game-changing innovation, Ellipse's EVC, which is a dynamic CVV technology, brought to market in the United States by a powerful partnership between Ellipse, Perfect Plastic Printing, and TSYS. Together, these three companies are spearheading the U.S. launch of this technology, with the first deployment set for Q4 of this year. Let's meet our panel of experts. We're going to start with Curtis Garrett. He is the EVP of North America for Ellipse. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Jim Pond. Jim is the National Account Executive for Sales for Perfect Plastic Printing. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
And lastly, joining us remotely is Michael Van Bibber, who is the Senior Director of Product Management for TSYS. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So thanks for being here today. My name is Darby Dwyer. I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. We're going to jump right in, and we're going to start with you, Curtis. So we're here to talk about dynamic CVV or EVC. What are the pain points? Why now, and why are you involved in dynamic CVV?
Sure. So first, EVC is here to address the card-not-present fraud problem that has gotten out of control ever since EMV came out, really hardened down the card-present fraud issues that we had. And then when COVID came around, we started transacting more online. And the fraudsters have kind of flooded into the space of stealing data and using it for e-commerce transactions.
How did you get involved in this? Like, where did your interest come from? Because it's a pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fascinating technology.
Yeah. So you have to understand my background. I worked at a major bank in the U.S. for all my life, ever since I got out of college. I was responsible for running the debit card portfolio for this particular bank, and was also tasked with trying to grow the debit card portfolio, and I was required to come up with a 10-year strategy. To really grow the debit card program, we would need to lure customers away from other banks, and checking products are really sticky. And so I needed to really understand how we would differentiate our product versus the other banks. After studying the customers and really understanding this card-not-present fraud problem, we realized that the feature that customers want more than anything else is security. In continuing to research this, security can't be something that you explain to a customer through tokenization or scoring algorithms or machine learning. They want security that they can understand and relate to. So I was on a hunt for a product or a way to differentiate security, a more secure product to customers. I was introduced to Ellipse, this startup out of LA, and when I saw the product, the light bulb went off, and I left my job after 30 years, and here I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so the problem is that there's fraud with card not present, right? And how does that translate? What does that mean for the user, for the bank, for everybody involved?
Yeah. So the ecosystem between the issuers, the customer, and the merchant, the problem has a negative impact on everyone. So technically, the issuers don't have liability for card-not-present fraud because the merchants are accepting a less secure form of payment.
But you mean the banks or the credit unions or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, issuers, banks, credit unions, and charging back the transaction to the merchant is a very costly process. So it's bad for the issuers because they have to have these big departments that manage disputes and chargebacks. Plus, they just write off a lot of the losses because it's cheaper than going through the process. You also have to reissue the cards, so there's a lot of expense there. The merchants are the real losers. The rules of liability are stacked against them, so the merchants suffer. The real entity that suffers the most probably is the customer. When you research and talk to customers, they assume the worst when they see that there's a transaction that they didn't make, or they get a notification from their bank about a transaction that looks suspicious. And it really frightens them. And if you listen to phone calls from customers, it surprised me because when you're in the industry, you kind of know how the process works, but for the average customer, they don't. Especially if you're Main Street America, maybe paycheck to paycheck, and you might not have a lot of plastic options if you were to have to shut down your card. So it can be quite stressful, and those are the folks that suffer the most.
Absolutely. Okay, so The big issue is that, right, cards get hacked, right? Is that the appropriate term? Or compromised in some way, and then the banks are in trouble. And also, don't the banks lose, some credibility and some trust, and also, don't they lose that position, that top of wallet position? Because if I have a card that gets compromised, and then I take it out and I've got to cancel everywhere that I'm using it, and especially recurring charges. And then I'm going to use a different card if I have one to replace that until this new card comes in. And then it might not take the same place that it had before. So banks have a pretty big stake in this too.
Yeah. It definitely erodes trust. The customer expects the bank to secure their money.
Right.
And if they're not able to secure their data, then their money's not secure. And so eventually and over time, potentially, customers will just select another plastic to use and stop spending with this particular bank because they lose trust over time.
Okay, so go ahead.
I was just going to say, compromise is just a bad experience for the cardholder and for the issuer, because it just like Curtis says, if there's fraud on that, somebody's paying for that. And that's a bad experience. Much like you said, now I have to replace that card and either pay an expedited high cost to get that card quickly to my better customers, or have the risk of them changing out to a different card. So a compromise is a very, very bad experience for everyone.
Even if I do expedite it, what's fast enough? Because I have
3 or
charges
4
coming out,
days,
right?
right.
Is that
Yeah.
fast enough? And am I
Right.
still going to lose that top of all position, which
Right.
seems like a real possibility?
Yeah, and what makes it really bad is 1 in 3 Americans have had this happen in the last 12 months. So it's a big problem affecting a lot of people. It's not a one-off scenario.
Yeah, I don't think I know anyone who hasn't had that happen to them. It certainly has happened to me before. So we have this new product, and how does this sort of change the world? How does this change the atmosphere for people, or the experience for people who use cards?
Yeah, it's a great question. So today's information on the card is static. It never changes. With this card, it has a dynamic CVV field in it. It has a e-paper display on the card, and every time you tap your card, use it in an ATM or a point of sale, it harvests the power from the point of sale device to facilitate a change in the CVV value. So every time a customer uses their card, they get fresh data. So their card data is always evolving. So if someone was to steal your data, when you use your card, you get fresh data. If they go to use it, it's no longer valid.
So literally, there's a chip on the back of this card, and every time I use it, the number is changing. There's an electronic changing of the number every time I use it.
That's correct.
So what happens when I have this stored in a repetitive, like an Amazon or something like that?
Yeah, so that would be a card on file transaction. And say for Amazon, when you sign up, when you register, you're providing your CVV then, but they're also capturing information like your IP address, your mobile phone ID, your shipping address. When you go to make the next purchase with Amazon, they're not asking you for your CVV again. Okay. They're checking your IP address or your phone value. And then if something is suspicious there, then they may ask you for a fresh CVV.
Got it. So there's other ways for them to validate it because it's a recurring transaction.
That's right, and because you registered initially.
Okay. But for any other transaction, what about online transactions? How does that work?
So when you go to make an online transaction, you are now using a new CVV that you got when you transacted at a point of sale device. So the more you use the card, the more your data changes, and when you go online, you're continually going online with rotated card data.
And sometimes I like to shop at places that are maybe less, like I might see something and I'm not sure if I can trust that retailer, but I'd really like to buy something from them and I feel less trustworthy. Is there a way for me to not use the last one I used? Can I create a totally new one?
Yes, the product also comes with a mobile app where you can take your phone and tap it to, you can take your card and tap it to your phone, and that will facilitate a change in the EVC value. So if you do go online, make a transaction, aren't comfortable that maybe there's malware on that site, you then take your card, tap it to your phone, the CVV that you just used is no longer valid and you have a new one. So it allows the customer to have control of their security. They get to interact with their security on demand. So putting them in control is a really good way to helping them feel more secure.
Yeah, and builds trust with them because they know that they've been able to take control.
Yeah.
As opposed to leaving it in someone else's hands. And it's not, this fraud doesn't take place, generally speaking, from, leaks at the banks, right? This fraud generally takes place when someone uses their card with a retailer and someone takes a picture of it behind the desk or something like that. So it's not the bank's fault that this fraud is happening, yet consumers want to blame the bank or the issuer a lot of times.
Well, they expect the bank to keep their data safe. They expect security from their bank. A bank is synonymous or supposed to be synonymous with security and securing your money. And, it's no longer that way.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Curtis. That is extremely helpful. I have a much better understanding of it. So let's turn to Jim. Jim, you're with Perfect Plastic Printing. Perfect Plastic Printing has been known for innovation. You guys have been around forever and a day. You're actually the folks that sort of created or patented the mag strip along with lots and lots of other patents and awards. So it's not surprising that you guys are the people to be the company to bring this to market, right? It makes sense that this group of people are the ones who are bringing this product to market for the first time. By the way, Q4, we're going to start seeing this in the market, which is very, very exciting. So tell me a little bit about why we're bringing it to market now and how PPP got involved and how you got involved.
Yeah, very, very exciting. Perfect Plastic is very excited to be a partner with Ellipse on this technology. One, we've already invested into the tooling that's required to put this chip in any card body. If somebody wants to issue it on a metal card, on a PVC card, recycled PVC, we're ready. We're already producing, as you said, cards that are going to be used within weeks. So, and we have sample cards. So any issuer that wants to see this work, see this in play, we can send them sample cards and provide the application that Curtis talked about. It's very exciting technology.
So if I want to hold it, touch it, experience it, because this is kind of a big head. It's a big thing to wrap your head around because
Right.
it's so different, right? So if I want to see it, touch it, experience it, all I need to do is reach out to you and you guys will send me samples.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Contact information at the end. You mentioned Perfect Plastic's been around. We celebrated 60 years this year.
Congratulations.
And in business, we're a family-owned and operated company. In the financial services business, that's very rare. So we think that makes us a very unique company. We have in-house card design folks that can help any bank, credit union, fintech launch a product like this very easily.
So it doesn't matter the size, right? If I'm a small credit union or a huge bank,
Yep.
you guys can facilitate doing business with me and helping me get through this process.
Yeah. So one of the advantages that we have as a company is being family-owned and operated. We're very agile. So if someone wants a program and has the ability to launch it quickly, we can support that.
So when you say launch it quickly, that sounds very exciting because this is all very, very new, right? There's none on the market today, but there's going to be very, very soon.
Yes.
In Q4. So if I'm in the audience today and I want to be a part of this and I'm interested, what could the time frame look like?
Yeah, it's not the same for everyone. So there are many parts and pieces that are involved in launching a program like this. So we'd have to talk to each individual to kind of come with that time frame. But from a card manufacturing readiness standpoint, we have a program that we call Quick Turn that could launch this card and have cards ready for any institution that wants to do even a pilot in as quickly as 1 to 2 weeks.
Wow. So theoretically, in a month or two, if all the stars align and everything is right with this client, you might be able to get something out to customers.
Absolutely.
Okay. So how would a bank determine who their pilot program should be with, or a credit union or a
that's
fintech?
a great question, and maybe Curtis can add a little bit more. I would say the number one thing is look at where your card not present fraud happens. So most of the time it's on a credit portfolio, but it could be in the debit. So it's different. Again, same thing, different for different institutions, but they would want to evaluate where that fraud is the most significant.
I mean, I think that's one thing you look for. So there are a lot of advantages to EVC and a product like this. Top of wallet is an example, increased approval rates, less reissues. So potentially just taking a sample of your portfolio and measuring the value and the lift across a variety of metrics is a good way to start.
Fantastic. Okay, so thank you both. That's great. Michael, with TSYS, we want to bring you on board and ask you to join a little bit now. Explain, how does TSYS support this technology across all of the different payment or the payment ecosystem? How does it work?
Absolutely. So we really wanted to take us back to the beginning of our journey with dynamic CVV. We were introduced to this technology almost a decade ago, and while we really loved the product, we loved to be able to put something in the cardholder's hands that was really transparent to the merchant and really to themselves from a user perspective. But there are a lot of downfalls to the original product, right? It required a battery, it required special equipment for personalization and shipping, and it also at the time required some upgrades to our HSMs, right? So it was a really large investment with the potential for issues once we got to market. What we really love about the Ellipse product, right, is there's no battery. It really leverages EMV technology, right? So we can, with some minor enhancements to our platform, we can support this product, and that would include, the entire not only issuance but transactional life cycle, right? So we can enable this, from an issuance perspective, through authorization, monitoring and decisioning, customer servicing, and then all reporting functions, right? And as I mentioned, there's really no friction, particularly for merchants, right? To them, it's just another 3 or 4 digit code. They don't even know it's a dynamic value. And then as well for the consumers, right? They're reading the back of the card to obtain the value. They're entering it into the card not present transaction, or even a mobile wallet provisioning experience. They're doing that in the same way that they would today. For us, we obviously know, right? We can understand at the time of issuance, this person's been issued a card, and then we can recognize that throughout the life cycle of the account and the transaction. So we know not only has this person been issued a more secure form factor, but they're also using it when making those card not present transactions. So and that's really what you're always trying to achieve is less friction or just enough friction while providing that security on the backside. So it really does well with that. For issuers, we really see this as an added layer of security, right? As I mentioned, we can recognize when someone's been issued this type of card. We can recognize that the authorization coming through should be used in a dynamic CVV capacity. All right, so if we layer that into our other fraud and risk products, it really provides that broader view of fraud prevention for us and for the issuer. And then really, to echo Curtis's statements earlier, in dynamic CVV really not only drastically reduces the direct fraud losses, but also all of the associated fraud costs, right? So that the total cost of fraud from managing that initial call, through moving the transactions around, reissuing the card, et cetera. So not only does it reduce direct fraud, but all of the costs associated with the fraud occurrence itself.
Fantastic. So I remember when chip cards first came out, and I was very excited to get my first chip card or tap and chip card, the tap feature. And but it was really hard to use. There were a lot of places that didn't accept the tap, and that took what felt like an eternity. I'm in a small town, and it took a very, very long time. So if I get this wonderful card, how long is it going to take before I'm able to actually use it?
That's right. So the beauty of the product, right, and particularly the Ellipse solution, is that it does leverage chip and contact technology, right? So you can take this today, you can use it as you normally would at any POS terminal or ATM, right? So if you tap it or dip it, it's going to progress that value on the back. And then obviously from a card not present perspective, there's really no difference for that cardholder. They'll simply enter that information from the back of the card for a card not present transaction. to initiate mobile wallet provisioning, right, in a much more secure way. So really, it can be used anywhere that your regular chip or contactless card can today.
Anywhere, anytime I get my card, I'm good to go.
That's right.
Okay. And you said something about it not having a battery. How does that happen? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a huge deal. That was one of the there were a couple of things with the Ellipse technology. One was that it requires no internal power source. The other one was that you could blink out the display on the back of the card. We really saw those as something that made us take the leap into to this initiative, right? To invest in it, to partner with Ellipse and Perfect Plastics on offering this product to our customers. But it works in the same way that contactless does, right? So if you go to a terminal and you're going to tap your card to do that, there's no battery in your card today. It uses the power from the field that's emitted by the POS terminal to run those very minor functions on the chip or contactless card, and it leverages that same technology for the Ellipse product. So essentially, that field is what powers the Ellipse chip to roll that number forward.
Fantastic, thank you. So let's go back to Curtis. Can you expand a little bit on the battery thing? Because I don't really understand how that works, and also anything else that we should know that kind of sets this chip apart.
Yeah, so like Michael said, the card is harvesting the power from the point of sale device to facilitate the change in the e-paper display that's in the card. So it's not new technology, it just leverages existing technology.
So I'm not plugging it in, I'm not charging my card, there's none of that?
None of that.
Okay.
You simply use your card the way you've always used it, and the more you use it, the more your data changes and the safer your card becomes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
One of the things that Michael touched on, that every time I show someone this card, this is one of the factors that they find the most fascinating, and that's the ability to turn off the screen. So the back of the card it's a screen instead of a static printed number for that security code. It's a screen. That's how it changes every time. I can turn that off, and now when I'm at a restaurant and the waiter walks off with my card to go somewhere, there is no number that they could take a picture of and steal that data.
So they can't, it's there, but they can't see it.
That's correct.
That's amazing.
Customer
For
could choose to leave it in their wallet blanked out.
So I could virtually never use it in a present scenario, right? And
Correct.
And it would be, it would always be protected.
Yep.
Right.
And when you go online, you could turn it on, access it, and use it.
That's crazy. Incredible. Okay, so let's talk about, so this is very exciting. I think everybody can see the value in this, and it's impossible not to. So let's talk about, the elephant in the room. How about the cost? How about the value of this product?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it is a premium card.
Right.
But you need to restructure the way you think about the card. Today, the card is just a vehicle for spending. The card now is the reason why we have the fraud. With this card is the defense against the fraud. Today, banks realize that customers experience the bank through their card. Roughly 70-75% of all banking transactions are card transactions. So knowing this, banks try to leverage the card the best they can, and the only way they can do that is with artwork. Now the card is something the customer can interact with. It's a card that they can increase their security with. It's a part of an experience, a different experience than it's been in the past. And so for like marketing managers who have been working on artwork, it's a different way to think about it. The portfolio managers, if you are addressing the thing that customers want the most, and that is undoubtedly card security, card data security, if you are really differentiating yourself on the most important item for cardholders, you're talking about increased transactions, top of wallet. There's a lot of other metrics that drive the success of the portfolio that now your card is able to participate in. So there are a lot of different things here that this card gets. Yes, it is a more expensive card, but you're getting so much more out of the card. than your traditional card.
Yeah, we've been living in a state of commodity. Cards are a commodity. So if I want a cheap coffee mug, that's what people are looking for. This is totally different, as Curtis said. This is a premium product that there's nothing that compares with it on the
Right.
market. So the cost is almost irrelevant. The savings, obviously, cost justifies it, but the cost is almost irrelevant because of the strength that this product offers over everything else in the market.
Yeah, and I would have to imagine that consumers are willing, I would be willing to pay for a card like that, right? I'm not, the inconvenience of traveling or, whatever the inconvenience is, that we've all experienced the inconvenience of having our card compromised.
Yeah, that's true. So there's been some studies that have been done, some research that have been done where customers say they'll be willing to pay for a product like this. It's kind of sad that the data says that, but it shows you how bad the problem is when customers are willing to pay extra for the bank to secure the money that they're supposed to secure
Right.
anyway.
Sign me up, I would do it, for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's just another one of the different ways the card, you have to restructure the way you think about the card.
Right. And you brought up a really interesting point. You talked about marketing managers trying to differentiate themselves. And I would have to imagine, right, getting someone to change banks is a really difficult thing to do. I have a relationship with my bank. I know where they are. I have my cards. All of that. Why would I change? But this feels like one of the things that would cause people to change their banking relationship.
Yeah, that's right. So checking accounts, banking accounts are very sticky. And so getting a customer to move is hard to do. But if you're differentiating yourself on the thing that matters the most, and it's not like security is the number one thing, and right behind it there's something else. When you ask customers, 74% of them say, I want security more than anything else. And then the rest of the 26% is spread across some other things like rewards, et cetera. So it is a differentiator that is very significant. And so if you're able to show the customer and they can really see how you're different with the thing that matters the most, I can't think of a better way to potentially get new customers.
Yeah, I can't either, right? And like you said, I can have a cool card and I can have a metal card and all those things. And those are valuable. I like a good looking card and I like a card that feels good. But I'm not, that's hard to get someone to change banks over. This is an easy thing to get someone to change banks over.
It is if you are a first mover. So
Right.
Everybody knows in the banking industry that data security, card security is what customers want the most. No one's just been able to have a way to differentiate on it. This is the first thing I've seen in the market. I spent a bunch of time looking for it. It is my belief that it will reach a tipping point where a bank cannot choose to not be as secure. And as other banks start to adopt it, I think it'll force more mass adoption. Because it is such a differentiator.
Do you see a difference in demand based on income levels? Are you noticing that?
That's a great question. So you can see some folks look at this and say, this could be a great product for my high net worth individuals. But you also need to understand that the Main Street America, the people who may be living paycheck to paycheck don't have a wallet full of plastics. Right. And if they're paycheck to paycheck and they have this one card, that's where their money is, and it's compromised, then they're wondering how they're going to get their milk or their gas while they have to wait a week for their card to come in. It impacts the lower economic folks more so than the problem does the high-end folks.
Right, it's more of an inconvenience for a high-end user, but it's more of a life-altering
much
situation.
more stress
Sure.
for folks that are in the Main Street space. So I see it as a product that applies to everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, fascinating. I know that we've been getting a lot of questions, and some of them have already been kind of sent to me here. So let me start with some question and answers, and hopefully you guys can help me. And then Sarah is over here. She's taking questions. So if you do have questions, don't hesitate to send those over through the chat, and Sarah will ask them if we have time. We'll certainly answer all of them. I think this one is for Jim. So what should banks know if they want to launch EVC?
Yeah, I think number one, as Curtis was saying, either evaluate your card portfolio for what makes the most sense to the institution. Let's find which I think I like his idea even better, sample with all your card portfolio. Make some samples and then get real-time data out of those different card, the effects of this. So get that, obviously contact us so that we can kind of talk through the process. There are, as we mentioned before, different factors that play into how quickly we could get this card program off the ground. We can do a very fast delivery of a pilot, and then it's very easily to scale to go and make all of your cards an EVC card. We're very, very confident that once the issuer sees the statistics, they'll say it only makes sense having all of our cards this way because it benefits all of our card holders, it benefits the institution, and I think more than anything, as Curtis was saying, it creates a differentiator for them from their competition.
Yeah, I imagine that issuers aren't getting feedback on their cards frequently. I don't imagine that credit unions or fintechs or banks are getting calls from their users saying, this is really cool. And I think that this is one of those situations where they're actually going to be hearing feedback. So it'll be really interesting to watch as this unrolls. Fantastic, okay. And then I've got a question here for Curtis. Let's see. Yeah, so as we know, everything changes, right? So how is this thing future-proofed? Is it future-proofed? Is something else going to come up in a year that's going to make this obsolete?
I don't think there is anything. I think there's an internal debate that I see happening where some product managers are talking about, hey, let's just don't even put the CVV on the card. And we'll have the CVV exist in a digital format on someone's phone. And I didn't like that when it was brought to me in my previous job, because the goal of a portfolio manager is to enable customers to spend however they want to spend. You want to make it as easy as possible. The reality is that we are a society that mainly spends using cards. We're still a plastic spending society. We have some digital adoption, and people are using their phone to make purchases, but it has not gone mainstream yet. It's been around for 10 years, and you can look at the Federal Reserve payment study. It is a very small fraction of the transactions are happening on a mobile device. So if you were to only have your CVV exist in a digital format on the phone and the customer goes online to transact, now you've just introduced friction. Right. They're used to just pulling their card out, getting the information they need to spend.
It's like putting an off code in, right? Like you got to wait for the email or the text or whatever.
That is friction.
Right.
Whenever you interrupt the transaction, you are creating friction. And if somebody has to go to their phone to get the information they need to transact online, that's friction, and that creates abandonment, and that means you lose interchange. Yeah. So I've heard that out there. Right. I would never do it because I think you need both, because you do want something like that for your mobile-only folks. But the word only when it comes to spending is a bad word for me.
Right.
We accept that when we're logging into our bank account, right? We want that security.
Two-factor.
Right. We want to make sure that Curtis can't get into my bank account. You know, it's very secure. We don't want that when we're paying for
I'm buying a pair of sneakers.
A six-pack.
Right,
you know,
right.
We want it to be simple. We want to be in and out just like always.
Sure, and that could feed that whole, card abandonment issue, which is the biggest issue that retailers are interested in.
Yeah, typically the way the industry has done it is two things. One, you use friction to increase security. You make the customer do something to help the bank know it's them. And the other thing is, typically banks use fraud scoring. A transaction goes into the system. It goes into a fraud model that then tries to assess the risk of the transaction based off of previous spending patterns. And it gives it a score. And if it's not comfortable approving it, it may require you to do something, a step of authentication, which is friction. That process hasn't worked because card not present fraud keeps going up and up and up. So the traditional way that the industry has been fighting fraud has not created the improvement or the downtrend that we want. It's just getting worse. EVC is just a whole different approach. If you don't have the right data, you don't get into the system to get scored. So it fights it at a different level.
Fantastic. Okay, so Michael, if I can tap into your knowledge base here, is there any impact on merchants or processors? How is it going to be different for them?
It's completely transparent to the merchant. That's what's great. Echoing Curtis's statements, there's absolutely no intrusion here. There's no change in cardholder behavior. The merchants, in fact, don't know the difference between a dynamic and a static value. So from the merchant and cardholder perspective, there's really no difference there. On the processing side, we did, of course, enhance our systems, right? We want to be able to know who's been issued a dynamic CVI2 card, right? So we want to be able to report on those individuals. We want to be able to provide customer servicing and self-servicing capabilities there. And then on the authorization system, right, we have to know if they've indeed been issued a dynamic CVV card. We have to know how to validate that value when it gets to us, right? Because there's obviously a difference there. So enhancements to our base system, not terribly intrusive again, because it leverages EMV technology, right? So we're already doing that every day. So it's a pretty a relatively light lift for us. And then in terms of rollout, right, we've designed it in a way that it's highly configurable, right? So with loading of new keys and then changing of business configurations on both the cards and the authorization side, we can have an issuer up and running relatively quickly. And we were careful to ensure that we have a view and configurations down to the cardholder level. So you can roll this out in a very targeted fashion. You could even roll this out to a single person on an account where one person has dynamic CVV, one person still has static, right? So that we can ensure that you're targeting the right population, that it's behaving in the way that you want, and that you have that view of that cardholder throughout the life cycle of the account and the transaction.
Fantastic. And I think we've been getting a lot of additional questions. Sarah is off camera now, but I think Sarah can help us. Are there any additional questions that we want to present to our panel?
Yeah, here's a good one. Any issues with personalizing the cards, and do we need to activate the card?
Yeah, personalization is done very much the same as any other card. Again, the card number and expiration date is static, so that part stays the same like any other card. Activation of these cards work the same way as any of your other cards. It's going to be sent to you, and there's going to be either a QR code or a phone number to call and activate that with your institution. So really no difference from a personalization and activation standpoint.
Yeah, I think issuers could choose to ship the card out with their CVV display blanked, and then when the customer gets it, they could use their phone or go to a point of sale to make the CVV code present itself.
Wow. Sarah, are there any other questions?
I wanted to touch on something Michael just hit about the merchants.
Yeah.
It's really important to realize that the merchants are the big winners here. The liability when you have these type of card not present transaction is technically belongs with the merchant. And I was saying you need to restructure the way you think about a card. So now, if you're a procurement manager, you should be thinking about, wow, if we may have a co-branded relationship with this merchant over here, you as a bank can now become a more attractive bank to a co-branding partner. The bank is now going to be providing a safer, more secure environment for that merchant. So shouldn't underestimate the value this brings to merchants and how banks can become more attractive to them.
Absolutely.
Make myself a note of that.
Right? So I think for each of you, and we'll start with you, Curtis, what's the biggest impact? What's the biggest impact of this rollout? Which, by the way, Q4 this year, these cards are going to be in people's hands.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think the biggest impact, it's really, to me, it's about the customer. You really just need to understand how big of a deal this problem is for customers, that the trajectory continues to get out of control, and it's just untenable. And so for a bank to be able to really differentiate themselves on security, that what you're going to, how the customer, I think, will respond in the form of top of wallet, I think banks are going to be impressed with what they see.
I think the acceptance of this, as we've been talking about, is very, very critical. You mentioned it earlier, contactless hit our market pretty fast. Most institutions adopted contactless to their EMV cards pretty quickly. This could be even faster than that because of the seamless experience to the consumer. It's really no difference. Their transactions remain the same, but the value that it has to the consumer, to the issuer, and to the merchant is overwhelming.
Absolutely. How about you, Michael?
Yeah, for me, it really closes the loop on combating fraud, right? So we certainly managed to do that in the card present space with the move to chip, which effectively rendered counterfeit fraud useless. And then for those PIN issuing clients, we really were able to cut down on lost stolen fraud, and now we're able to do so in the card not present space by ironically using the card itself to do so. So for me, it's really being able to combat all types of fraud.
Absolutely. And I think Sarah's still getting questions. Is there any others that you wanted to send our way?
Yeah, I think this one is for TSYS. How does TSYS recognize the dynamic values of CVV codes coming from this card? Is this captured anywhere on green screens for bank users to see?
Yeah, it sure is. So what we do is when the cardholder is issued a dynamic CVV2 card, right? So we set an indicator on the system, right, which that tells us that the card this person is using should be dynamic. So when the authorization comes to us, we know to check that 3-digit value against a dynamic setting, right, on our authorization front end to perform that match instead of doing so with the static value. And so we provide that result both in the authorization system and to our fraud system to denote that indeed the dynamic was used to be validated. And then we also show the result, and then we can actually provide a different result if it were to decline for invalid dynamic CVI2. So we show a view of the cardholder and the authorization itself.
Go ahead, Sarah.
This one is for Curtis. What are your thoughts on selling this product to smaller community banks and credit unions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think it's universally appealing. It's not specific to small banks or big banks. Card not present fraud doesn't really discriminate against a bank. Right. It just looks for the weakest spot. And so, yeah, I think credit unions are a great place to start. Smaller institutions as well. So in situations like that, some customers are looking for like loyalty and relationships with their bank that you're not going to have with a massive institution. So a product like this, I think, would be very compelling for institutions like that.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions, Sarah? Okay. Well, gosh, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Curtis. And thank you, Michael, for your time and for your expertise. Today's conversation was about more than just a product. It's an entire paradigm shift in the payment securities. EVC brings together ease, innovation, and real-time fraud defense in a truly elegant, easy-to-adopt solution. This U.S. launch, led by PPP, Ellipse, and TSYS, is the first of its kind, and the first bank rollout is coming in Q4 of this year. So if you're an issuer, a processor, a fintech looking to stay ahead of fraud and restore cardholder trust, now is the time to explore EVC. So for more information, please reach out to Jim Fond from Perfect Plastic Printing, or Curtis Garrett from Ellipse, or Michael Van Bibber from TSYS. Our discussion, again, was so exciting today, and it's about more than a product launch. This is a new era of security in payments, and we're certainly excited to watch what happens over the coming months. So thank you all for being part of this event.